This is The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. With your host, Tyson Gifford and William Roerick. Episode 113, recorded June 22nd, 2017. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. I'm your host and the editor-in-chief of TV Enthusiast. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my co-host on The Weekly Set, William Roerick.
Hello.
So, today we are going to be talking about Twin Peaks Episode 7. We're going to be talking about the season finale of American Gods, Come to Jesus, and we are going to be going over a little bit of news as well, to start the show off. So let's start the show off with this news. So, first story first, Wet Hot American Summer, 10 years later, they released a trailer for it. You check it out?
I checked it out, yeah. It looks funny. It looks like the same goofy humor of the previous, the movie and the previous series. I noticed a couple people weren't back, most notably Bradley Cooper, it's 10 years later, so at the end of I don't know if this was I think this was the movie, at the end of the movie, Bradley Cooper said, or was it at the end of the series? I'm confused. But anyway, Bradley Cooper's character suggests that they all get together 10 years later.
That was the original movie.
Okay, so he suggests they all get back together 10 years later. So this series is the 10 years later. And Bradley Cooper is absent from this. So that kind of makes it more notable when it was his character's idea. But,
maybe we'll see a reason for that. I don't know. It's kind of hard to wrangle in a cast like that. They managed to do quite a few of them. So I really loved, I think in this trailer, the thing I ended up liking the most was, Paul Rudd's character having the off with the kid.
Yeah. Oh my god. Or
to see which one could be more apathetic.
Yeah. Or the little girl that was dressed exactly like the chef.
It's like Gene, yeah.
Yeah, like Gene. It's nice outfit.
So nice bandana.
Nice bandana. And the can is back.
I'm excited to see some more of this. Wet Hot American Summer was hilarious. The prequel series was hilarious, and I'm looking forward to this now. So we knew this was coming for a while now, but this kind of trailer just kind of came out of nowhere.
It did. I had actually completely forgotten about this until I saw that trailer come out. So it's good to know that it's definite. It's been made. It's definitely coming. It still exists.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun to check out. We got another trailer that came out this week as well, which is the second trailer for season 7 of Game of Thrones.
Yes. Oh my god, was that hype or what? Jesus. I mean, I know Game of Thrones.
I think I like the first trailer better still.
I think I like this one better. And I don't know why, but it just because it was just so full of we actually saw a White Walker in this trailer. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, exactly. So
we also got to see a lot with Clegane, the Sandor Clegane, the Hound.
Yep, the Hound. We got to see a lot more of the Hound. So this is definitely.
We also got to see Jon Snow kind of approaching what looks like Dragonstone, which is where Daenerys is going to be. So we got that kind of Jon Snow is going to meet up with Daenerys, maybe. We got
a split second blink and you'll miss it. Somebody fighting a White Walker.
Yeah.
It looked like he had a nice sword. That was awesome.
We got to see the other guy with the flaming sword.
Yeah, with the flaming sword. I saw that. I said, fire sword.
From the footage they showed of that scene in particular, the stuff happening that looks like it's happening past the wall, it looks like it's Jon Snow, that Thoros of Myr guy, the guy that was resurrected a bunch of times before Jon, and who had the flaming sword, and the Hound are in that group. And I'm like, wow, that's a pretty awesome group. I like to see behind the wall, two people that have been resurrected that one with a flaming sword and then the Hound. It's man, that's a nice group.
That is a nice group, yeah. So I'm super excited for next month when this airs. Did you hear the rumor that the final season might actually skip 2018? Or you might not get that till 2019?
Yeah, that's, it's hard because I don't want to give too much credence to it, because basically what it is it's the, it's the executive at HBO basically saying that they don't want to rush Dan and Dave, and that if it slips to 2018, it slips to 2019, it slips to 2019. But, I don't want to give it, and go yeah, that means it's going to happen. But the same thing happened with Westworld, where they said, it could be delayed a whole year, and then it ended up being the case.
Right.
So I'm kind of oh god, a whole year without Game of Thrones, it's going to be pretty hard, but hey, I guess that gives us time to catch up on 70 million other TV shows we have coming out.
Yeah, true. It sure does give us time for everything else coming out. But that'd be one hell of a
Speaking of coming out from HBO, HBO just announced that they have in development a Watchmen TV series that's going to be run by Damon Lindelof of Lost.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this.
I read the graphic novel for Watchmen, and I remember when the movie was announced, and I was reading the graphic novel around that time, and I was how are they going to adapt this into a movie? There's too much material. And even with the extended, super long, movie edition, they still barely scrape the graphic novel.
That's
what
true.
was in that, And I kept thinking God, it would be so much better as a TV show. And I remember it was in talks to do a TV show for Watchmen as well.
Oh yeah,
at
because
HBO.
There's so much material.
Mm-hmm. And I love Damon Lindelof. I loved Lost. Of course, that's my favorite show of all time. He did The Leftovers, which just ended very strong. That was a very, very good, final season for a series. So these are all elements that go well together. I don't know. I've never thought of Damon Lindelof doing something like a comic book type show.
I never thought of it either.
That never even occurred to me to think that way, But apparently he's written for comics before, so it's not too unfamiliar.
It's not too unfamiliar. The article I read, they had this weird line. Well, it just read weirdly to me. It was said, it said Damon Lindelof grew up reading Watchmen, and I'm okay, so. usually it mentions usually an article will mention a creator's involvement in something, if they actually had a hand with it. But it read it was it read if it was supposed to point out Damon Lindelof's connection to the franchise, and the only connection they come up with was he read it growing up. And I'm yeah, that's not much of a connection.
Well, they did something similar with Sam Raimi with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
When he took on Spider-Man, they were talking about him. Yeah. It's just kind of a weird kind of statement to end things off on, but I don't know. I'm excited about everything involved here. I'm excited about HBO. I'm excited about Watchmen as a TV series. I'm excited about Damon Lindelof working on another project. I don't know if all of those together are going to be something that I'm going to be super excited for, but
I don't know.
After The Leftovers, the way The Leftovers ended it just had so much introspective character drama that I'm I remember when I read Watchmen and they do this whole chapter about Rorschach and his past, and it was read this file from a therapist that and I'm I could totally see that side of it. I could totally see Damon Lindelof just nailing that kind of character drama. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say though. It's a really weird combination.
It might be good for people new to the franchise. For me, I watched the movie, I read the book. I don't really have a desire to retread the exact same story a third time. Especially
I can't imagine Lindelof will either.
Yeah.
I can't imagine he'll do it right on, because, The Leftovers was based on a book, but they took liberties even in the first season, and the first season covered the book. And then the second and third season, there was no story left in the book.
Right.
It was just original material.
And if you watch
those were the better seasons. Those were the better seasons of the show.
Zack Snyder's, Watchmen film, he hews super closely to the book. There's barely any deviation except for the ending. So that's one of the major complaints that was actually leveled against that movie was it stuck way too close to the source material. And who knows, maybe Lindelof will take more liberties with the material and, turn out something different.
I think he'll retread some of it, but I think he'll do it a bit differently. I think he has a different angle. It's going to be less about action for him, and it's going to be more about, like, the introspective character drama. And I think that's what's going to make it interesting, because that's what made the comic really interesting. I mean, I'm really looking forward to when they tackle the chapter of the comic book where you see how Dr. Manhattan perceives time, and it's kind of like jumping back and forth and stuff. That was an amazing issue within the book. And I think that, like, Damon Lindelof would probably do a really good job based on, when you watch things like The Constant from Lost, I could totally see Lindelof nailing that. And that was completely not in the movie at all. They just, like, barely touched on anything related to that. So it's like, yeah, I could really see that. Plus, they're talking about the fact that this is not a mini-series plan. And the series is very finite. It's got, like, a very specific, ending to it. So the fact that they're not doing it as a miniseries implies that maybe it will be quite a bit different from the book. Plus, you have all the stuff going on right now that, like, apparently Watchmen is in the DC, like, comic universe now.
Right.
Like, they're setting up a battle between Dr. Manhattan and Superman or something now, which I don't expect them to do in the HBO show. They're not going to have any tie to the DC stuff, but just the idea that DC is, like, doing more with the characters now.
That's true. DC
in their universe. It makes me think that they're going to be really interested in somebody fleshing it out beyond what we saw in the original. So,
I mean, DC did do a series of Watchmen sequel comics. I don't know if you're aware. It's possible Lindelof can mine something from those. I didn't read those. It was actually kind of a controversial decision when they did that.
Yeah, because it's not Alan Moore.
It's not Alan Moore, exactly. And so, but, I guess,
I kind of hope he doesn't. I kind of hope he fleshes it out in his own way. Because that's, like, honestly, like, Leftovers, first season, pretty good. Second season, third season, amazing. And those seasons, no book material. Just completely original material.
Oh, wow, okay.
And those were by far the best seasons of that show. I mean, by far. Like, to the point where there's a lot of people that recommend you just kind of, like, maybe, like, get a gist of what the first season is about, but otherwise skip it and then start on season 2. A bunch of people say that about, like, The Leftovers, because that's, like, the quality difference is so huge. It's not that the first season's bad, it's just it's really dour, really bleak, really slow, and it isn't as good as, like, there is, in addition to that, there's a huge quality jump from season 1 to 3, or season 1 to season 2, and then season 3. But, yeah, like, the best stuff was unrelated to the original material. And I think that's where Damon Lindelof's more interested, too. Like, I listened to a podcast with him on it where he was talking kind of about his process and the kind of people he hires for his writer's room and stuff, and the ways he looks at that. And I think this is a good thing if they're going to do something that goes beyond the book material. Lindelof is a good choice for that, that aspect. I have no idea how to envision, like, his version of Watchmen. Like, I can't picture it,
Right. I can't, I can't picture it. It's certainly going to be interesting to see that. It's certainly an interesting pickup for HBO and an interesting project for Lindelof to take on. Lindelof said he's a self-professed fan of the material, and I think there was a quote by him somewhere where, like he was answering a hypothetical question, what if people don't understand it? And his attitude was well, if people don't understand it, it's not for them.
Yeah.
It's like a quote he gave.
Which is exactly what I want to hear.
Yeah. So
I am all for going full on esoteric,
Yeah.
I'm all for that. So, I mean, that's why I love Hannibal, and people bitch and whine about how it got too artsy-fartsy and stuff, and it's like, that was the best parts.
Yeah,
those were the best parts of the show.
People piss and moan about the visuals.
And it's like, that was the best part. The more esoteric and weird it got, the better. Same thing with Mr. Robot for me. It's like, I'm all about the full-on esoteric. So if Lindelof is saying he's not going to cater to people that might not get it, then that's all plus for me. I'm all for that. I think that's it for the news, though.
Yeah, there wasn't really much news.
Yeah, I mean, those are some big stories, just the trailers and Watchmen. The Watchmen news was big, huge. But other than that, I mean, yeah, not a lot of news. I mean, it's not like there's TCAs or anything going on right now,
Right, exactly.
The next big news burst is going to happen because around the time Comic-Con happens in July, like right after that, the TCAs kick off. So it's going to go right from Comic-Con to TCAs. So we're going to have this period where it's just like nothing but news for like a couple of weeks straight. But that's not going to be until like mid-July. So until then, yeah, not a lot of news. It's a slow point. It's going to be like that, I mean, E3 just ended with video games. It's going to be the same thing. If you're a really big video game fan and you're really into video game news, right now,
it's going to be a slow news cycle.
Not going to be a lot of news. Yeah.
Game companies got out all their major news already. So
now they're sleeping. Yeah.
So I think you won't start getting major game news again until the fall.
Yeah. And it's kind of that way with TV, where like right now, TV news is a little bit on the low side. Comic-Con hits, you're going to see a flood of news. It's also really interesting the fact that Comic-Con this year starts right after the first episode of Game of Thrones airs for the new season. That's never happened before, and they can never show anything at Comic-Con from Game of Thrones because it always happens before they film. So like the most they've been able to do is show like do like a reel of like who they cast. That's like the most they can usually do for like Comic-Con. So Game of Thrones is going to have probably their best Comic-Con panel ever because they actually have stuff to show, But yeah, a lot of TV news coming up then. Not so much right now. We're going to move on and we're going to talk about Twin Peaks. We're going to be talking about episode 7 of Twin Peaks, of the Twin Peaks Returns.
Yes.
So what did you think about this episode? I see a lot of people online talking about how this is like, this is the moment where it feels like Twin Peaks is back for them. For me, that was like episode 4.
I don't know if it felt like Twin Peaks was back. I think this episode spends the most time inside of Twin Peaks than the other episodes.
In the actual town, yeah.
Yeah, in the actual towns. That's probably why people say that. There was a lot of story, just moving the story along in this episode. A lot of plot, which was interesting, I thought, because, so the more eosteric stuff was like kept to a minimum as they did more stuff to advance the plot in this episode. Not that the eosteric stuff still wasn't there, but So we did find they found missing pages from Laura Palmer's diary, including premonitions.
That's what we had seen in the last in the last episode when we saw Hawk getting him out of the wall of the door stall in the bathroom.
Yeah,
it was indeed Laura's diary.
And, it came complete with a premonition about Agent Cooper, which was their premonition because Laura said this was told to her in a dream. And it was about good Cooper being trapped in the lodge and the Cooper that came out of the lodge being the bad Cooper, basically. Then that was told to Laura in a dream and she wrote that down. That was on the missing page. And so Hawk's kind of piecing it together and I think the other characters are starting to piece together that the Cooper that they're familiar with isn't the same Cooper that came to Twin Peaks originally. Like this is somebody different. And so they're starting to piece that together.
Like FBI agents Gordon Cole and Albert Rosenfeld, with Diane went to visit, evil Cooper again in jail. She very clearly was saying this is not Cooper.
Yeah.
This is not the Cooper she knows. So it's, you kind of have it coming on both sides. So you have it in the Twin Peaks side with the premonitions and the diary, and then you have it coming from there there where they're actually encountering the bad Cooper. And then you also have like another piece of the puzzle that's coming in, which is that Ben Horn over at the Twin Peaks Hotel, forgot what the hotel's called, got Cooper's key in the mail. The one that Jade, the prostitute, dropped in the mailbox. That when Cooper came back into the regular world and Dougie got sent back to the Black Lodge, where he just kind of like turned into a ball.
Yes. There's a humming sound.
When that happened, it wasn't, Cooper didn't take over Dougie's body. Their bodies moved. So this key that had been in Cooper's pocket the whole time,
right,
was now in our world, where it had been in the Black Lodge all this time before. So, Jade found it, sent that to him. Ben checked the key and was like, this is a throwback. We changed these locks like 20 years ago,
Yeah.
to a card. So they switched to cards, which, if you go to a hotel, like, it's rare to find a hotel that uses keys now, they're
right.
all on cards. He says they switched it 20 years ago to cards, and he recognizes the room number as being the one that Cooper was shot in. If he ends up taking this key to the police, then that's going to lead, to the sheriffs, and they're going to be able to kind of pursue this idea that, something's different in a whole different direction, and they might end up encountering Dougie.
Right. Yeah, they might have it. If they did this earlier, they would have encountered Dougie instead. But now that Dougie has switched places with Cooper, and speaking of Cooper, we see the midget from the last episode make an attempt on his life.
Yeah, Ike the Spike.
Ike Spike, that's what he's called. Okay.
Now with a gun, because his ice pick is bent.
Yeah.
From last episode.
He went and got a gun.
He comes marching up to Cooper, pulls out a gun on him. Cooper automatically jumps into badass FBI agent mode.
Yeah.
Like weird Cooper version of badass FBI agent, where he's like
also
using
does
karate
it
chops
like
and stuff.
he almost does it. He almost does it like it's instinct, because his mind isn't there. So it's almost like his instincts, his body is taking control, and is defending itself from him. Yeah, but he just like jumps on the guy, karate chops him. They basically chase him off. You see the arm. Cooper sees the arm, and I couldn't quite make out what the arm was saying to him.
It was saying something like squeeze his hand off.
Okay.
I don't really get, but then, a police officer or somebody on the scene recovered the gun that was dropped by the guy, and there was like a chunk of flesh on it that he like slowly peeled off of the gun. So maybe it's like DNA evidence that they ended up getting. Like, it's kind of weird to imagine that he was squeezing his hand and a chunk of his skin came off on the gun or something, but Twin Peaks, hey.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, Jesus.
Not gonna fight for logic in Twin Peaks.
I wouldn't.
We also got to see, apparently we got to see Major Briggs, or at least his decapitated body, before we had seen a scene where the military had received reports that they got like his fingerprints, and they sent off somebody to investigate. And she got there, and she found a body of a man who was supposed to be around the age of 40, which would have been about the age of Major Briggs when he was on the original Twin Peaks series. But now he should be in his like 70s, is what they say.
Right.
And yet this body has apparently been dead for like a few days. So, something kind of up with that, Apparently Major Briggs popped back into our world and then got killed. We don't really know what happened there, but apparently he was out of place with the world. But yeah, it's just kind of, you have this kind of side of the story. I don't know if they just, now that they've addressed that's all we're gonna see from it, or if we'll see more. We still haven't seen anything else about these, the murders that took place in the first two episodes of the series. Although, it's like the same police officers that reported this body, that was decapitated. So we have to imagine that, Evil Cooper had some involvement with this.
Yeah, I would imagine Evil Cooper was involved. Speaking of Evil Cooper, he he manages to escape from prison by blackmailing the warden. Apparently he got some dirt on the warden. Something happened involving strawberries and
knowing Twin Peaks is probably some horrible like rape molestation thing.
Yeah. It's something awful.
Because that's the way Twin Peaks does it. But yeah, so the warden releases Evil Cooper. He takes off in a rental car. Interestingly enough, not a Mini Cooper. That's my horrible joke.
Bad joke, bad.
But he and one of his cohorts that was in jail with him, apparently, although he was arrested separately, so that kind of wasn't really explained, but one of his cohorts and him were freed and given a car, and now they're off on the loose to terrorize the world, and Twin Peaks in particular, and try to hunt down Good Cooper. But in the meantime, towards the end of the episode, we got a scene from the old whorehouse from what was it called again? The place that they travel to, like in Canada or whatever, in the original series. We got to see that place again, where they were talking about underage prostitutes. So it seems like a lot of the same shit that was going on with. No,
we didn't actually see that place. We saw the bar, and he was on the phone talking to somebody about that place. You know.
Yeah.
We saw the bar after an uncomfortably long shot of just this guy sweeping up cigarette butts. That
was like the length of a full song.
Yeah, I was like, he was just sweeping, and at first I was kind of numb to it, but then like after a few minutes I realized, wait a minute, I'm just sitting here watching this guy sweep, and then and then I thought the scene was going to go until he was done sweeping up all the stuff, and so when like the phone rang and like stuff actually happened, I'm like, but that guy still has. You're
like, wait a minute, what about the sweep?
I was like, wait a minute, that guy still has that. There's still that pile over in that corner.
You can't leave me without closure.
Yeah, I need closure on this now. Does he finish sweeping the floor?
Oh, please tell me he did. Now, there's really nothing else that's significant. Oh, I got one thing that was kind of, I guess, worth mentioning, which is that we got an appearance by Doc Will Hayward.
Yes.
From the original series. The actor is one of the many actors from Twin Peaks that passed away, but was able to film a small part for the show. The actor is Warren Frost, is actually the father of Mark Frost, who's the co-writer with David Lynch.
Okay.
On the series. So it's his real-life father that played Doc Will Hayward in the original Twin Peaks. We saw him again talking about on Skype, which is just kind of weird, seeing Skype in Twin Peaks.
It was weird.
Did that throw you off like it threw me off?
It threw me off. Yeah, because it was like hilarious, because he just like mentions it. Says, "Do you have Skype?" Then he pulls it up, and then we hear like,
and you hear the tone, and
you hear the tone, and it's like, oh my god. It's like, how much Microsoft paid David Lynch for this advertisement?
It was just so weird.
Weird.
I don't know. For some reason, Twin Peaks still feels like it's set in the 90s to me. So, like, when they do something like that, it's like, oh, what the hell?
Or when you see somebody on or when you see somebody on an iPhone.
Yeah. More so with this for some reason. This, really threw me off.
Yeah, more so with this, yeah. And that's another thing about Twin Peaks. Apparently everybody uses iPhones, no Android phones on Twin Peaks.
It's a dark place. That's all I gotta say.
Yes.
It is a land with many tragedies. And that's just one of them.
That's just one of them. Yeah, exactly. Maybe Apple works for the lodge.
Evil Apple.
Yeah.
That's what that brain on the tree is. It's Apple. The arm is Apple.
Yeah, the arm runs Apple. No headphone jacks.
But yeah, so Doc Will Hayward was talking about how he treated Cooper after he came out of the Black Lodge, and mentioning that he seemed very off and suspicious to him at the time, and then that he had noticed him kind of sneaking off when he left Twin Peaks. and that he had looked right at him.
What do you think happened between Evil Cooper and Diane? Because something happened. She said, "Remember the last time I saw you?" And he said, yeah, I remember the last time I saw you. And she was like, I'll never forget that. He's like, I'll never forget that day.
Oh, you mean like, before. Okay.
Yeah, so
the reason why she, like, wants him, is like, was glad that he was in jail.
Right.
I mean, we have to imagine he's done all manner of horrible things since he's come out of that Black Lodge. He probably killed, Major Briggs.
Right.
He, might have done something to Aubrey because they mentioned something about him seeing Aubrey, and we haven't heard anything of or about Aubrey.
Right, exactly.
Since then, so something might have happened with her related to that. So yeah, he probably, I don't know, he probably did something horrible to her, as Twin Peaks is a show in which people do horrible things to each other, especially people from the Black Lodge.
Right.
So I imagine something horrible happened there. We might never even find out, though. Just kind of leave that lingering as something unsettling in the background.
It's interesting. They confirmed something did happen, but there's a lot of speculation as to what might have happened. So
it seems like, maybe knowing Twin Peaks, it could be sexual violence or...
See,
there are a myriad of things it could be.
Somebody point out it's not going to be sexual violence, because that's like a really lazy way to just get to that point of hatred.
But Twin Peaks does do a lot of sexual violence.
Twin Peaks does do a lot of sexual violence. But it's most likely something else. We actually haven't seen, if you look at Evil Cooper, we actually haven't seen him commit sexual violence on anybody.
In a way, he killed that one woman. He was like, sexually intimidating her. And I think like the second episode.
Right.
Where and then he ended up killing her and like strangling her and stuff. So I mean, it was like right on the edge of that, and we know that Bob, in
Bob
the form of Leland, like raped and murdered.
Yeah, we know
Laura.
Bob is all about that. But so yeah, we don't know. It could be anything. But I thought it should be pointed out.
Well, let's move on then, and let's talk about American Gods.
Yes.
So this is the season finale of the show. I think more than anything, what surprised me with this episode is how much lighter the tone of this episode was than much of the rest of the season.
Well, this episode featured Easter.
Yeah.
A bright candy-colored holiday.
Yeah, this episode had much more akin to, like, Pushing Daisies than, like, Hannibal.
Right.
As far as, like, the realm of Bryan Fuller material. So yeah, of course you have Easter with the bright, all the brightness coming from that, but just in kind of general, the whole tone was just much lighter than, like you'd think almost that it would be going a lot darker in, like, a season finale, right. Setting up, like, a cliffhanger or something.
It does go...
For the most part, it went much lighter.
Dark at the end.
A bit, but even still, like, it handles it in a lighter way, like, right. It's just, I mean, visually, it doesn't look as oily and dark as like, the first couple episodes did, for example. And then also, like, just kind of the events that occur, it's mostly them talking about events that occurred before that we'd already seen resolved, like the fact that Wednesday killed Laura and stuff like that, just kind of getting confirmation for her that happened, but it's something that we'd already seen. So it's just kind of, I don't know. Tonally, it was just much different. What did you think of that, though? The kind of tonal shift? Because that's one thing with this show that I've kind of been like, I've been enjoying, but it's very, like, hard to kind of wrap your head around sometimes, the way the show can shift tone in certain episodes,
Right. I have no problem with that. You can see, if you watched Bryan Fuller's, the larger works of Bryan Fuller, you can see that he is very adept at playing with all kinds of different tones. You compare something like Pushing Daisies to Hannibal, and it's night and day, tonally. And they're both excellent shows. What they are, I think what American Gods allows Bryan Fuller to do is it allows him to play with and incorporate all those tones into one series, which we see him, and this is the example we see him doing. He's playing with the tone and just really doing a masterful job of making it seem natural too, to where it's not so jarring and out of place. Is actually quite funny. Like one of the best parts, I think one of the best parts that exudes like this sort of mixture of tone is when you see the bunnies, when Wednesday runs over the bunnies on purpose. You get that you get that darkness, and you get the lightness.
It's a different kind of darkness, though. It's like it's a very dark humor.
You get that darkness and you get that lightness in the same moment, in the same scene. He just mixes them, and it does create light humor. You're right, but he's playing with those tones, and you could tell he's just having a blast with it.
Yeah.
And it just shows how skilled he is, like that he can pull that off.
So in this episode, we got to meet several of the Jesus characters.
Yeah, there's
a whole party full. They really only focused in on a few.
Mostly Jeremy Davies.
One in particular. Yeah, Jeremy Davies, who's listed in the credits as Jesus Prime.
Jesus Prime.
Because apparently he's a transformer.
Makes sense. My Jesus.
Or a Metroid. One or the other.
A transformer. According to the show's mythology, a transformer Jesus can exist if somebody believed enough and willed it into existence. All it takes is faith.
They'd mentioned at the party, Easter mentioned at the party that one of them had a raptor too. So.
Yeah. Well,
I thought that was really funny.
That's neat. That's funny reference to internet. Raptor Jesus.
But yeah, we got to see Jeremy Davies as a very, very kind, kind of seemingly almost, what's the way to put it? Like almost out of it character who's just kind of like hanging around, like not realizing that he's caused Easter pain by taking her holiday, but feeling so much remorse when it's pointed out to him.
Yeah, yeah, feeling so much remorse. He's just kind of like this chill, laid back guy, I think that's more like
he's like Surfer Jesus almost.
He's so laid back. Yeah, Surfer Jesus,
Zen Jesus.
Shadow becomes enchanted by him. We see this whole series. Shadow has kind of not really had much of a personality in the way that, nothing seemed to faze him, and he seemed to not have like any strong reaction to the things happening around him. The strongest reactions he's ever had is when he's getting upset with Wednesday because, he thinks Wednesday's an asshole. That's the extent of it. Even his wife coming back to life barely fazed him so much. But he sees Jesus, actually sees Jesus, and all of a sudden, he's got this big goofy smile on his face. He's enchanted, and he starts coming around to this idea of faith, and, he starts becoming a believer, which was an interesting, character turn for Shadow in this episode,
I'd argue the big goofy grin was mostly for Easter.
That's true. He did seem enchanted by her, too, unexpectedly.
They seem to be the two most powerful gods kind of around as far as the old gods.
Yeah,
it seems to be Easter and Jesus Prime.
Because Shadow actively seeks out Jesus, and he asks him for advice and guidance. And you got that scene with Jeremy Davis, Jesus, and Shadow Moon, and it's a good scene.
Jesus sitting on top of a pool, dipping his cup in to turn it to wine and drink it, and then losing his cup in the pool and just being kind of like sad and remorseful about losing his cup.
Yeah.
While that's happening, as, Shadow is enjoying, the different versions of Jesus at the party, mostly Jesus Prime, we actually get another arrival at the party, which is, Laura and Mad Sweeney pull up. I love just the first instance of them pulling up in the beat up ice cream truck.
Yes.
They pull up, and then it cuts to, and you see, Laura's awake, and she just kind of kicks, Mad Sweeney awake, and he's, huddled up in blankets. Yeah. And Laura is just looking horrifically bad right now. She's just, her eyes
she's falling apart.
Cataract over, and yeah.
No, she's rotting.
Her skin looks yellowish.
She's literally
and,
rotting. She pukes up maggots. That's how bad it's gotten with her.
It's gotten past the embalming fluid stage. He puked up maggots this time. They get to the party. They end up talking to Easter. We thought it was going to be like Jesus resurrecting her, but apparently it's Easter that was going to resurrect her, who Mad Sweeney believes that she resurrected Jesus.
Yeah.
Because he was resurrected on.
Yeah, man.
And so that's where that Jesus connection came in.
That's where Jesus came in. Easter fixes Mad Sweeney's assumption. It says Jesus was resurrected because people believed it to be so. Like, again, belief in this show is a powerful thing. People can will things into existence through belief, and Jesus' resurrection was just one of those things that got willed into existence through belief. So Easter corrects Mad Sweeney and says that was not her doing,
Yeah.
And Sweeney begs Easter to resurrect Laura. Easter looks Laura over and then declares she can't resurrect her because she was killed by a god.
Yeah, not Mad Sweeney being a god, but Mad Sweeney working as an agent of Mr. Wednesday.
Right, working
and Laura, through this conversation with Easter, figures out that there's something that, Mad Sweeney isn't telling her, so she's holding him up on the wall by his balls.
To get information out of him.
At first, to get him to say it, and he says, you know who it is, and she says, I know, I just want to hear you say it.
Sweeney tries to take all the blame. Sweeney says it was all him, he killed her, she doesn't buy it because, she was very clearly told that she was killed by a god, and Sweeney's not a god. Despite being a leprechaun, leprechauns aren't gods. So Laura doesn't buy it. So she presses him further for the actual answer. Yeah, it turns out
he ends up revealing that it was Wednesday. She already knew that. She just wanted to hear him say it.
Yeah, she already knew that. I mean,
at that point,
again, it's something that we knew. The audience knew that. The audience, if at this point in the show you didn't figure out that everything that happened to Shadow Moon was engineered by Wednesday to get him to the point to where he is, then you weren't paying attention. Because
Matt Sweeney ends up not only revealing that to Laura, but also the fact that it isn't about Laura. Like, it never was. It's about Shadow.
It's Shadow, yeah.
And that Shadow himself is like nobody, apparently. He just happens to, like, his belief happens to be important.
Yeah, his belief, for some reason.
Wednesday gaining his belief, it's important.
For some reason, his specific belief is important. It's still a mystery why Wednesday needs Shadow Moon, why he needs his belief in the first place. I hope that's explored more next season.
I imagine it will be just the way this season ended off, because
as to what makes
the season,
Shadow,
the episode ended off with Wednesday finally revealing to, just kind of in pure exposition, revealing to Shadow who he is, and then asking him if he believes. And, that whole point of him, he's been, holding back on that for, the longest time, been very careful about his timing on that. So I imagine that that's going to be coming very quickly into season 2. It's going to be a big part of the beginning of season 2, is why Shadow is important and why Wednesday needs him. But, as I said, Wednesday finally revealed to Shadow Moon that he is in fact Odin. He goes on a big, beautiful rant naming all these names that he's gone by, naming his crows and his wolves, and saying that he is Odin in a big amplified voice, as we see a kind of vision overtake him of the kind of the statue thing left on, or the carving left on the beach from the first episode.
Yes.
Of Odin that the Vikings left. Kind of we see him kind of morphing with that effigy of him in that moment, and you have this big dramatic moment for that.
Let's talk about how we got to that reveal. Because, Laura and Mad Sweeney weren't the only people to crash the party.
Yeah. Media showed up with some of the children, as Technical Boy has called them, back behind her, kind of all dressed up for the party. Media, I believe, was maybe Audrey Hepburn, I think, was what she was supposed to be there. Media always appears as different dead celebrities. I believe that's kind of what that version Tyson was like Aubrey Hepburn. But then, through, the scene, through them eventually getting confronted by Wednesday, media being confronted by Wednesday, while Easter is there, Technical Boy pops out as well. And so now you're kind of building this kind of showdown between them. Mr. World ends up showing up as well. So now you have these three new gods that we've seen. Media, Mr. World, and Technical Boy all kind of facing off with Wednesday. He declares that he is making a sacrifice in Easter's name. And Media says, sacrificing what? And a big lightning bolt comes and strikes down all of the children.
Yes. Yeah.
As they call them. As the new gods call them.
The children. He kills the children as a sacrifice in Easter's name, and basically tells Easter to cancel Easter until people start praying to her.
Cancel spring.
Oh, cancel spring. Yeah, that's right. I don't know why I called spring Easter. To cancel spring until people start praying for it to her. Pray specifically to her for it back.
He was able to properly feed into her ego on that, her concern with the fact that Jesus is kind of taken over her holiday, her concern that she's kind of becoming less and less relevant, and she'd been kind of resisting it all this time, and at that moment, he really kind of appealed to her vanity, and she did.
Oh yeah, well,
she
were
walked
these,
out and she took spring back.
There were some things about Easter, some things that were bugging her, and Wednesday came in there and he pushed on those buttons. He essentially goes there and he manipulates her into working for him, because he goes there and he pushes her buttons and kind of and gets her thinking the way he wants her to be thinking, and it leads to that. So you can see how Wednesday is a master manipulator.
Yeah.
You see him at work in this episode.
So you see all kind of like the blooming vegetation of the world kind of sucking back into the ground, basically, and leaving everything kind of barren in like a post-winter state. Now that she's kind of taken spring back, and she's basically going to starve out mankind or America for their worship.
Right, exactly.
And this is going to give power to the old gods who are now in opposition, formal opposition to the new gods, as Mr. World finally declares war.
Yep, Wednesday's action has finally caused Mr. World to declare war, which in Wednesday's view, they were already at war, but, Mr. World's...
And that probably only makes Wednesday more powerful, because he is kind of like the war god,
Yeah, he is the war god. So now we gotta actually rewind. We gotta rewind back to the beginning of this episode, because there's another story that plays out in this episode. And that begins...
Well, the story actually comes from Mr. Nancy.
Yeah, it comes from...
Which is kind of cool. We see Mr. Nancy again.
Yeah.
He's making suits for Wednesday and Shadow to use when they go to this party. Pretty snazzy suits too, by the way.
Yeah, pretty snazzy suits.
But he has all these spiders going around. They're making the suits for him, and then he hits a certain point where it's just like he's kind of bored of working, and he gets up and he's like, "I need to tell a story."
Yeah.
And he ends up telling him a story about Bilquis.
Yes.
Who we've seen in the first 2 episodes of the series, and now we're seeing from a very different perspective, because we're seeing it kicks off right from her in her heyday in ancient Egypt.
Yeah, to when she was widely worshipped in ancient Egypt. She had a temple full of followers. You see this big orgy at the beginning in ancient Egypt. They're all worshiping her,
all in her name. And he's going on to the story about how these men who call themselves king are always trying to take her down because she had the audacity to be, so powerful as being capable of creation as women are, as he said. And you see that this guy, and you see a crown kind of emerge in his skin. And it's kind of
pretty freaky.
Weird and interesting.
Yeah.
And he's kind of climbing over some of the bodies in this orgy, and he wants to dominate Bilquis, but it doesn't go his way.
Oh, it doesn't go his way.
And he, along with everybody in that orgy, is sucked into the vagina nebula. nebula.
Right. I guess that's as good enough a term as any for it. The vagina nebula. But we see as the ages go on, she loses her power. She's actually manages to be resourceful through the ages. We see her in 70s in Iran, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. She's at a disco.
She's at a disco. She's looking as lovely as ever. She meets this woman at the disco, and they're dancing. They're pretty entranced with each other. And then the Iranian Revolution happens. And around her, and she's kind of forced out before she can, Bilquis can, I assume, make her play. She's on the airplane. She's on the airplane flying to America. So she's actually coming to America for the first time now. And she tricks some guy on the plane into getting sucked into her vagina in the plane bathroom.
The Mile High Club, yeah.
The Mile High Club, yeah. She tricks this guy. We see her come to America. Apparently she does not have an easy time in America, because next time we see her, she's in America and she's homeless. She's got like sores all over her face. She's looking...
Well, before that, we had seen that the woman she was dancing with in Iran, is dying of AIDS.
That's true, she is.
So we see kind of all these things kind of going against her, and then she's in America and she's not looking good, and she's homeless, and she goes up to a Middle Eastern restaurant in the window, and she's seeing her image on the menus for this restaurant, but then sees a TV in the restaurant where she's seeing that ISIS is destroying her temples.
Right, ISIS is destroying her temples, so all of her symbols, her the temples where she was worshipped, those are being destroyed. So it's her power and her influence has completely waned, and the last vestiges of her influence are gone.
To her rescue comes Technical Boy.
Yeah, she's at her lowest. she's at her very lowest point, and then Technical Boy shows up and offers her
an iPhone.
An iPhone, yes. Because everybody uses iPhones. Get with the times. It's Twin Peaks, Now American Gods. They're telling you something.
It's the phone that she's given when she's down on her luck.
Yeah.
It's she didn't think it could get worse, and then he hands her an iPhone.
Well, yeah. He's Technical Boy, so he's a douchebag. Yeah, he hands her an iPhone. He shows her Tinder, and
Yeah.
And
he has a profile there for her already. And he has a
profile made up for her already, so that she can attract people and suck them into her vagina and regain her power, which is basically what she does. She's basically working as a call girl when we see her in episode 1. And so now we know that that's been set up by Technical Boy, and not something that she got into by herself necessarily, but a direction that Technical Boy put her in. Now, as part of the New Gods crusade to sort of re-empower these old gods under their brand,
And we see that this favor is that Technical Boy has done for her is called from Technical Boy to her, saying that he needs her to do something for him. It's not really said exactly what.
It's not stated, but I assume it's to Vagina Vacuum Shadow Moon. I assume that's what Technical Boy wants to happen.
Something in that, and we don't even know necessarily if this is Technical Boy acting alone or Technical Boy working with the other.
Yeah, we don't know if this is
New God. Because we know Technical Boy has kind of a different view of things, or at least did, than Mr. World and media.
And we know Technical Boy
that he wants to take out Shadow Moon and Wednesday.
We know Technical Boy wants to take them out. I mean, the first thing Technical Boy attempted to do was kill Shadow Moon outright at the beginning of the series. Not so much of a warning, he just jumped too straight, I'm going to kill you.
So we don't know if his interactions with Bilquis are at the behest of the New Gods. I mean, almost certainly his initial interaction with her was at the behest of the other New Gods. But if this favor being called is at the behest of the New Gods, or if it's completely unrelated to that and it has to do with his own pride.
I would assume that I'm going to go ahead and assume that this is this is Technical Boy working on his own. That because he felt very strongly about killing Wednesday and Shadow Moon, whereas Mr. World disagreed, and he was kind of made a fool of at that police station in front of his peers. So I imagine he's holding some resentment for that. So this is probably him coming up with his own plan to sort of get back at Wednesday and Shadow Moon.
Yeah, that's kind of what I imagine as well, being the case. But he has her kind of on this. She doesn't want to be involved. She tries to kind of seduce him. He's kind of giving her the greatest look, like the look he's giving her of like, kind of like disgust, like, ew, I don't want to be in that, you know?
It's like, yeah, that's not going to work with me, you know? Yeah, she tries to seduce him. She tries to seduce him to get rid of him, to be free of him, but you know, he obviously doesn't fall for that.
But yeah, so she doesn't fall for it, and she's kind of like in the position where she just kind of has to eventually, I guess, do what he wants. We see at the very end of the episode, she's on a bus, and it's played similarly to
when
the airplane scene, because she picks up a guy,
takes him into the restroom.
She picks up a guy and heads to the restroom on the bus.
Yeah.
And then we see the bus from outside going by, as well as some older cars that seemed kind of placed there distinctly as well, probably representing other gods traveling, because we see a sign that says that House on the Rock, which is where we know the meeting of all these gods is going to take place.
Yeah.
So Bilquis is headed there.
Bilquis is headed there. And so that's where the season leaves off, right before we get to the House on the Rock.
I should add in one thing that we didn't mention yet, which is that after Shadow says he believes in Odin and believes in everything that's going on, his day is kind of ruined by a ahem from Laura.
Yeah. Laura wants to talk to him. We know
Laura says she wants to talk to her
that's
husband.
about, but Shadow doesn't know what it's about. So
that's just kind of like the last thing I need to make sure we said before we kind of just talk about the season and what we're kind of thinking it's going to go from there. Because that means, of course, that she's going to talk to Shadow and basically spill the beans about what Wednesday did.
Shadow's going to find out about Wednesday. That's going to create some tension there. As far as where season's going, I have no clue. It depends. I think the direction of season hinges heavily on what happens at the House on the Rock. We know that the old gods and new gods are officially at war, or at least Wednesday is officially at war with the new gods.
Easter's sided with Wednesday.
He doesn't.
Chernobog is indebted to go to Wednesday now.
Yeah, we gotta assume Nancy is on Wednesday's side, but there's still a lot of gods out there that we haven't even met that Wednesday, and we don't know.
Vulcan's dead.
We don't know what side they're going to be on, or so there's a lot to explore still there.
The Jesuses are probably pacifistic and don't want to be involved at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of, there's still a lot at play, here. And we know that there was originally supposed to be another episode. That they stopped an episode early because they were just struggling to figure out how to put together the 10th episode, or the, 9th episode. And they basically just said, why don't we just stop where we're at? This is a good stopping point.
Right.
And we'll pick up with that other stuff in the next season. So we know that probably this meeting at the House of the Rock was originally going to be planned. Like, in the writing process, they were planning to write that for this season.
Right, yeah.
But then they held off.
They held it off for next season.
So clearly that seems to state that that's something that's going to be immediate in the next season.
Right.
Although Bryan Fuller likes to fuck around with people a little bit. And if you remember, Hannibal season 3 began with 2 episodes without mentioning Will Graham.
Yeah, I remember. So we don't know if it's going to start right at the House on the Rock. Probably not.
Or if they could start in they could follow different gods in a completely unrelated story and then tie them into it.
Oh, they can totally do that, yeah.
Fuller can do like all sorts of stuff like that, and he's done it before, so you could do that. But we know that early in the season, one of the first things that's going to occur is going to be this meeting at the House on the Rock, because it was originally going to be in the next episode, basically, that ended up being cut from the first season.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, what did you think of this season as a whole?
I thought it was alright. I felt a lot of points it meandered, really, but as a whole, I liked it. There's a lot of stuff. I won't say it's Bryan Fuller's best work, but it was certainly interesting. No, Wednesday's fabulous character, played to perfection. You know, I love Mad Sweeney. Those are probably my two favorite characters on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was good. It wasn't great. It's not great.
It hasn't hit that point that, like, you know, Hannibal hit towards the end of its first season where all of a sudden it was like just next level, you know, we haven't seen that yet. You know, I'd say it's kind of up there with like Pushing Daisies, maybe not up there with Hannibal. But hey, you know, Hannibal didn't really start hitting on all cylinders until season 2.
Right. Hannibal. But I did think even Hannibal had a stronger season 1. Like I said, the problem with this is that,
well, towards the end of season 1, Hannibal really started finding its groove, but even still, it took a huge step up with season 2.
I still don't think American Gods has found its groove.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I enjoyed it. Like I said, I just wish it was more tightly plotted. Like somebody said, like the season finale here, it felt more like a mid-season finale than a proper season finale.
It does, yeah, definitely. It's kind of surprising when it ends. You're kind of like, oh, wow, that's it for a season.
Yeah, that's it until next year.
But, you know, this is the kind of stuff that happens with TV. Like, they have to kind of find their tone and find their balance and then kind of shape it as they go from there. I think having done this now, I think there's a lot of expectation of this getting a lot better in its second season. That they can kind of look back at where they struggled and where they excelled and what got, like, really positive reaction and what got kind of more negative reaction, and then kind of lean into that with season 2. So I'm really excited about what they're going to do.
I'm really excited, yeah, especially since, you know, The House on the Rock seems to be a big turning point that gets a lot of buzz from people who read the books. I didn't spoil myself on that, so I don't know what happens or why it's such a big deal, but apparently it is a big deal. And apparently, a lot of people, the common consensus is the season should have ended on that because it's such a big moment. But obviously Bryan Fuller wants to save it for next season. So I'm hoping that kicks things off and maybe sets up the groove of the season, and maybe the show finds its groove through that.
Yeah, it very well could, whereas like the first season is very kind of like slow and methodical and really kind of digging into the character of Shadow and his interaction with these kind of otherworldly elements. Season 2 could be basically about everything kind of just hitting the fan, so to say, you know?
Right.
It could just be constant events, you know, stuff just happening left and right the second the season starts. That could happen. I mean, I feel that's kind of what happened with Hannibal with its second season. The chess game really kicked off, you know, between Will and Hannibal.
Right.
Whereas the first season was really good. The second season, like, okay, now the game's on. You know, now it's a game. I feel like in that same sense, now we're officially at war between the new gods and the old gods. You have this huge gathering of the old gods. You have all these different players coming in. You know, it's setting up to be really exciting. So I'm looking forward to what they have coming in that. But that is it for American Gods Season 1. Next week we will not be talking about American Gods unless some kind of crazy news comes out or something. Because we've just finished the season. So next week we will be talking about Twin Peaks though, and we'll figure out what else we're going to talk about as the week comes closer. But now, just to talk about what's coming up in the week ahead, on Friday, June 23rd, 2017, which will be the date of today by the time this podcast is available, Glow comes out on Netflix. This is about the women's wrestling league Glow from the 80s. It comes from Genji Kohan, who created Orange is the New Black and Weeds. Yeah, I think both Will and I are excited about this.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be watching. We're definitely going to be watching that, so we can probably talk about that.
That might be a good one to talk about. Alison Brie, of course, you know, I love her. Genji Kohan, I just finished tonight, Orange is the New Black's most recent season. It was really good. And this is like coming right after it. So yeah, good people involved. Been hearing a lot of really good early buzz about it. So I'm looking forward to it. And then on Sunday, June 25th, 2017, another big show for me, Preacher, is back on AMC. I loved the first season. From everything that I'm hearing, season 2 is where basically the comic book fans wanted it, because season 1 of Preacher, like, all took place in this town, and it's kind of like a prequel to the comics, because like the comic starts like as like a road trip kind of thing, and that's what season 2 is now. So season 2 is kind of like where the comics really kick off at. And you have this kind of really big figure coming in with the Saint of all killers, who's like a really popular character from the series. Got introduced really late in last season, and now we're going to be kind of seeing him interacting with the story more. It looks really good from all the previews I've seen. I'm really looking forward to it. And then on Wednesday, June 28th, 2017, Broadchurch is back on BBC America. This is a show I really liked the first season. It's just kind of like a small town murder mystery kind of thing. David Tennant from Doctor Who and Jessica Jones played like one of the detectives in it. British series. First season really loved. Second season kind of was letting me down a bit. Third season, I'm pretty much just gonna watch it because I've already watched the first 2. And it's supposed to be the last one, so it's just kind of for closure almost. Then on Friday, June 30th, 2017, Killjoys comes back to Sci-Fi. This is a really kind of fun space series. It's paired often with Dark Matter, which is also on Sci-Fi, as like, you know, Sci-Fi's 2-hour block of, you know, lovable rogue space shows. So Killjoys is kind of like the more lighthearted, fun kind of one, whereas Dark Matter is kind of the more like plot-heavy one of the two. Then Gypsy is coming to Netflix on that Friday as well, which is a new show about a therapist who gets kind of involved in her patients' lives, and things go kind of weird, and we'll have to see if that's any good. The previews haven't really looked that great to me. I heard the original description. I was a little intrigued. I've seen the previews and didn't really do too much for me, but I might check it out anyways.
Sounds good, yeah.
And so that's what's coming up in the week ahead. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will on Twitter. He is at Foxhole Hero. Check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, TVEnthusiast.com. You can subscribe to the podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the weekly sets. We'll see you next week. Until then, bye.
Bye.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@TVEnthusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more coverage